Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Repeat Ron, and today we're going to be talking about Killing Floor 2. We're going to be specifically talking about Abandon All Hope, one of the new weeklies, and kind of my tips slash guide as to what I would recommend you try doing. And I'm going to recommend two different play styles, at least if you are playing solo or if you're playing multiplayer. So we're going to go over the multiplayer first, then we're going to talk about the solo later, as to which maps I would recommend and what team comp and everything. In 6-man, I would definitely recommend, at least for a map, I would recommend the Prison. I recently uploaded a video that was a 6-man Hell on Earth run, or 6-man Abandon All Hope run, which is a little bit higher than Hell on Earth. You can check out that full video if you want to see exactly what everything happened, though. But I believe that the Prison map is probably the best map for actually getting you to the boss wave. And the boss wave is going to be generally the hardest depending on which boss. We'll talk about that in a little bit. First, I would like to talk about what you should do, how you should start the map, and where you should go. So on Prison, there is this structure, which is the Watchtower. This is located out in the prison yard, and this is where you're going to be holding up. This is one of the best holdout locations in the entire game, because there is only one entrance, but there is two exits for you. There is technically a second entrance a little bit because at least crawlers can sometimes fall down from the side of the building and get to the back line of whoever's there, but that shouldn't be a big deal. Otherwise, everything has to run right up through the gates to actually get to your team. Now, for the starting classes, with Abandon All Hope, all enemies start out pretty much enraged and they move much faster than normal, or at least they feel like they're moving faster than normal. I think they're at usual sprint speed for Hell on Earth, so if you're used to that, it probably won't be too different, but enemies do spawn faster than usual. And I would recommend picking between just a few classes in general to have for the team at the very start of the match. You can then switch to other classes later on. But classes that are good early on, Firebug comes to mind. Firebug is incredibly strong on the first wave. The Cock and Burn kills pretty much everything very quickly. Molotovs kill everything very quickly, and you can push out areas very fast. If you're going to do this, make sure that you have Ground Fire and make sure that you have Spontaneous Explosion. Both of those perks will definitely help you because Spontaneous Explosion will deal damage to all enemies around you. Ground Fire will deal a ton of damage to all the small enemies, and you can easily get to whatever location you're trying to get to. The Watchtower would probably be the best if you guys can navigate to that quickly. If not, certain other parts of the prison are okay to hold up in, like the medical room upstairs, because it only has 3 entrances, I believe, and you can push out one direction or the other, so it's not too bad to actually be running around. SWAT is another really good starting class because SWAT, at least if you're level 20, I would recommend if you're level 20, pick SWAT. If you want to switch to another class later on, assuming you're not going to stay as Firebug or something, then just switch over to whatever your class is after the first wave. And with SWAT, you get the 2 pistols, you get the submachine gun that does really well against all the small enemies, you get flashbangs to help you out, and you get 100 armor. Enemies also have to break your armor in order for them to hurt you. So very strong right away. It makes it very easy for you to deal with just about anything in the first wave or so. I would also recommend somebody on the team start out as support. Just having one support is really useful. It's not going to be useful for the person actually playing support. The shotgun is really strong and the frag grenades can be pretty good against dense crowds, but frag grenades can injure you pretty easily, especially if Zeds are swarming over you very quickly. And the shotgun will run out of ammo, but you are providing ammo and armor, at least if you're level 20, to all of your allies. That is really useful and really something that you kind of want to do at the start of the match. Now, those would be the 3 classes I'd recommend. Other classes I really wouldn't recommend you taking round 1. Some of them are fine. Berserker's fine. You'll probably be okay. Commando, not good. I wouldn't recommend taking this wave 1. Demo's another one that I wouldn't recommend starting out with because the grenade pistol, you just don't have enough shots for. Even if you do have something like 2 supports, you might end up having enough shots then, but it's still not super reliable against most enemies. Sharpshooter has it pretty rough on this map. Gunslinger would probably have it rough too. Survivalist can, depending on whatever weapon you start out with. That's why I'd also probably recommend switching over to Survivalist if you want to play them. And Medic can also have it kind of rough. Medic will probably survive, but it probably won't be easy, and it would probably be better to be starting out as SWAT and then switching over to Medic, or starting out as Firebug and switching to Medic. This way you just have a very consistent starting round, and hopefully nobody dies. The way that I would recommend having a team comp for this particular map, and the way that, one of the ways that we did it, the first class I would definitely recommend is a tank class. This would either be Berserker going with Dreadnought, SWAT going with either the Bastion or the Glock 18 or both, or survivalist going with a melee weapon, something like the Hemoclobber. I would definitely recommend that you have one class of this that's going to be sitting at the very bottom of the watchtower, just sitting there blocking and causing Zeds to fight them first. This is best if you are playing Berserker or somebody like SWAT with Glock 18, because you just have a whole lot of defense. Enemies can't push through you very easily, and you can hang out there for quite a while. I did this with Berserker. This is what my role was just the designated tank. I was going to sit there and tank hits as much as possible. In the video, I think I was using the Medic Bat and the Frostfang. So the Hemoclobber and the Frostfang, that's a pretty strong loadout. You could also go with the Hemoclobber and the Ion Thruster. You could go with the Hemoclobber and the Bone Crusher. The Bone Crusher is your best defensive weapon. So if you just want to sit there and tank through hits, that's probably the best option, but it's up to you. I would recommend the Hemoclobber as your secondary, regardless of what weapon you're going to take, because the Hemoclobber is still probably Berserker's best weapon just for healing you up and for dealing like AoE poison damage to all enemies. That can cause Flesh Pounds and Scrakes to really slow down so the rest of your team can fight them. The second person I'd recommend on your team is a medic. You definitely need at least one medic, and I would recommend that they take the Heal Thrower. Heal Thrower is incredibly strong. It's probably Medic's best weapon since it counts as 2 medic weapons. You can use the healing gas as well as the healing darts to keep the Berserker alive, who's just going to be taking the majority of the damage, and heal up the rest of the team, because some of the team on the Watchtower is still vulnerable to husk shots and to robots in general. So make sure you keep everybody healed. The second weapon, you can take whatever you want as medic. I would recommend another medic weapon. For me, I would probably say the HM Tech 501 Medic Assault Rifle, the Medic Grenade Launcher, is probably the best option for this case. And then maybe switch that out for something like the Hemogoblin for boss wave. The Hemogoblin's just really good at fighting the bosses with, because it will reduce their damage, reduce their speed. Still really good for healing the whole team. The 501, you can just constantly put medic grenades down at like the Berserker's feet, or SWAT, or whoever's sitting down at the bottom's feet, so they can constantly have buffs and be constantly healed, so they're not in immediate danger of being killed right away. That's why I'd recommend that one. You can switch back and forth between the Heal Thrower pretty quick. Just keep spraying the gas and shooting the healing darts. That's really all your job is going to be, is just keep the tank alive. And the tank's job is just to keep everybody else alive by just phase tanking through all the damage. So once you have those two covered, the other spots are much easier to fill. I would recommend somebody that can clear up small Zeds very fast. The obvious class for this is Firebug. Firebug does it the most efficiently when there's this many Zeds swarming around. You can't kill things as quickly and as efficiently with something like SWAT or with Commando. Not saying either one of those would be bad to have. And then going with AoE weapons is the most efficient with them too. So the Thermite Bore is something I definitely recommend. If you don't have that DLC, that's okay though. You can also go with the Dragon's Breath, the Spitfires, the HRG Scorcher, Flamethrower, Cock and Bird kind of work, but they're less than ideal because of the area that you're fighting in. And the Husk Cannon's also really good. The fourth class I'd recommend is somebody that can deal with large Zeds quickly. Now, Berserker can kind of do this if you're sitting down there, but that's not going to be their main focus. That's not going to be their main role. They're going to be tanking. I'd recommend Demo. You could go with Sharpshooter, but Sharpshooter has to be way more accurate and it's way less forgiving than Demo. Demo will also help clear the small stuff. That's why I'd recommend it. And if you're going with Demo, I would recommend the really strong loadout for Demo being the Rocket Launcher and the Kaboom Stick. Pretty much just those two. Just use the Rocket Launcher against everything, Scrake and Flesh Pound, because if you're going all left side Demo, you can one-shot both of them, even with 6-man Hell on Earth, which is kind of what this is scaled to. So long as you're hitting headshots with the RPG, you can do that. Even if you're not, it doesn't matter that much because you have Berserker or SWAT or somebody sitting in the front tanking it. So even if you do need to get close to the Kaboom Stick, you can do it fairly easily and inflict a lot of damage to them. The last two spots are kind of interchangeable. You can put whatever you want there. I would recommend one being a support, because support is going to be incredibly useful for the entire team. Everybody gets ammo, everybody gets armor, which means that nobody's running out of stuff, at least super frequently. So your Firebug and Demo can keep killing things, and your Medic can keep healing stuff. Your SWAT or Berserker or Survivalist down at the bottom probably won't need it a whole lot, but they'll appreciate the extra armor. And then the last class, you could honestly have whatever you'd like. You could double up Demos to have even more damage. This would be really good for wave clear. You could double up Medics. This just keeps the Berserker pretty much 100%, maxed out health and buffs all the time. So you could definitely go with that. You could go with Commando to try to extend Z time, but I don't think that that's entirely necessary for this mode. It could certainly help because the Firebug and Demo would really appreciate it. Like Sharpshooter's another class if you want to go with more damage and potentially triggering Z time more often. That could help. You could also double up Firebugs to have even more crowd control. You could go with a Survivalist and he could kind of fill whatever other role he wants to, whether you want to do AoE damage, status effects, healing, kind of a combination between all that stuff. So that'd be the team comp that I'd kind of recommend building around, because it's incredibly strong against groups. You are fairly safe most of the time. You should do okay, I would say. Once you get to boss wave, though, you can switch your team comp up a bit. This is where Gunslinger becomes pretty strong, because Gunslinger is just the highest DPS, or at least the highest reliable DPS class in the game, and you have the highest movement speed, so you can actually outrun any of the bosses. That is really useful. Medic is, of course, extremely useful on boss wave. Berserker can be, especially against any of the melee-focused bosses, so Abomination, King Fleshpound, or Hans. Berserker's really good for just keeping his attention. That's pretty much what I did when we were playing this, was just that I kept Hans's attention the entire time so everybody else could fight. A quick note on the bosses as to which ones are really strong in this mode. Every boss now has 75% more HP in this mode, which makes some of them much more difficult. Hans can be more difficult because he can heal back more health, so it's going to take a while to fight Hans. However, like I said, if you can distract him with somebody like a tank SWAT, a survivalist, Berserker, survivalist and Berserker would be honestly the best two to keep him with, because SWAT's going to lose their armor and they're not going to be as useful against him. Whereas Berserker and survivalist at least have the damage resist passive, so they can keep his attention while everybody else fights him. The Abomination moves much quicker and his flubbers move incredibly fast. This isn't that bad if you have somebody like Demo or Firebug constantly killing the flubbers, which shouldn't be too difficult, but he is rather tanky. Hopefully he's focused again on somebody like Berserker, Survivalist, or Medic. Medic can tank through him very easily because of the passive poison resist that they have. King Fleshbound is probably the easiest boss in this mode, because even though his health is scaled higher, his shield is not. So once you knock him down to essentially what would usually be half of his HP, and then he gets the shield, and you have to knock that out before you can touch the rest of his HP. This one, you knock him all the way down, and then he has the shield, and you just break it just as easy as normally. And then you just have to deal with that last little bit of extra health that he has. So he's not that bad to fight, so long as you don't get cornered, or as long as he doesn't end up throwing a whole bunch of flesh pounds at you. Which, if you have like multiple demos on the team, probably won't be that big of an issue. They can kill them very fast, and you can deal a lot of damage to him pretty easy. Plus, he's pretty easy to counter in the first place. If he's focusing you and you don't want him to, just pull out a melee weapon, your knife, or if you're playing a melee class, just pull whatever that is out and then let him hit you, and then just keep backing off and not try to fight him. He'll leave you alone eventually. If he tries to use the laser, just duck underneath it. At least in most maps that works. It depends on which terrain he's on, but he's usually the easiest. We have Matriarch, who honestly doesn't get that much stronger than normal, but she is usually the hardest boss in the game. This way she just has more HP, but her shields and armor seem to break just as fast. So fighting her isn't as bad, because you can get her down to her, second stage, third stage, where she just wants to charge after everybody and keep attacking them. Again, if she focused somebody like Berserker or Survivalist, or even like Gunslinger, you can just keep outrunning her and just keep blocking whenever she tries to like hit you. So then she's not that bad. She's still pretty bad compared to the other bosses, but she's not as bad as she could be, I would say. And then we have Patriarch, who's probably the hardest boss in that mode, because he can keep running away and keep healing himself, and he has more HP than usual. So you have to hurt him a lot. You have to constantly keep hitting him. Again, if you have a class that can keep his attention, he's not too bad, but he's still not easy at all. And it's very difficult to actually burst him out to kill him like you normally would in a regular like Hell on Earth game. So now that we've gotten the multiplayer out of the way and kind of the boss overview out of the way, I'm going to talk about the solo, and if you want to beat this mode solo, how you can kind of do it. The first and most obvious way to do this would be to pick a custom map, something that's very big that you can run around on very easily, and then just pick somebody like Gunslinger who can just kill everything very quick. But let's not talk about like a cheese tactic, because that doesn't apply to everybody who wants to play this on console and who actually wants to win. So pick a large open map. Something like Nuked works really well. Steam Fortress can work. Spillway is really good. Any of those maps. There's a couple more too, like Tragic Kingdom or something. Anything that you can loop around pretty consistently in, that's probably going to be the best for solo because you're going to want to constantly be moving. When I did this solo, I did this twice solo. The first time I did it live on stream, I played SWAT because you get a huge advantage at the start. SWAT is a really strong class to start out with. You can then switch over, which is what I did eventually. You could switch much earlier than I did. I switched over to Gunslinger, which is very fast, very strong. And if you can aim, you'll probably be fine to go through the whole map as Gunslinger. I also use Gunslinger for boss wave. And I think we got Hans when I did it the first time. So I was just able to I got Hans the first time because I was able to bully him with the new Piranha pistols. The second time I did this, I did it on the Descent. And that time I got King Fleshpound, so that was the best boss I could have gotten, but that was the hardest map, and I completed it with Survivalist, which I went with weapons like the Hemoclobber and the Kaboom Stick, which are incredibly strong. The Hemoclobber just to keep my health up and to deal AoE damage, as well as just to swat away small enemies when they come one at a time. And then the Kaboom Stick to deal with any sort of large enemies or groups, as well as to use its extra mobility with the double barrel where you jump in the air and fire both barrels. It'll send you flying backwards. That helps me get out of some situations. The Kaboom Stick also has an incredibly high stumble chance with every shot. So anytime that you hit just about anything with it, it's pretty likely that it's going to get knocked away, whether it be a Scrake or a Fleshpound. And it scales really well with upgrades. So I just use those two weapons, I think, for the entire fight. And then, like I said, I got lucky enough to get the King Fleshpound, which those two weapons are incredibly strong against him too, where you just use the Hemoclobber to block everything that he's going to try to hit you with. At least melee-wise, duck underneath his laser beam, and then just get close and use the Kaboom Stick to constantly be jumping away, where you just keep hitting him with both barrels. You can kill him really fast then. So those would be like my general tips for playing Abandon All Hope. This is a really difficult game mode though, so don't be frustrated if you are dying. It's probably going to take a lot of attempts before you actually win. I have tried streaming this on stream quite a few times. And I think the best that we've done, at least in one stream, is maybe getting 3 wins out of probably 6 attempts, I would say. So usually we can get to boss wave unless we get swarmed by Fleshpounds or something. But then once we get to boss wave, things can change very quickly, especially if we get somebody like the Patriarch or the Matriarch, or even Hans can kill people really quick. So usually the only ways we've actually done it consistently is if we get King Fleshpound or the Abomination. So hopefully this helps you guys out a little bit. Tell me what your thoughts or tips are on Abandon All Hope down in the comments below. And special thanks to the supporters of the channel. I really do appreciate that. These are my members over here on YouTube and my patrons over on Patreon. If you'd like to be a part of that, there are links down in the description. If you do that, then you get early access to videos like this, as well as a few more rewards if you're a member over here on YouTube. If you'd like to see my other Killing Floor 2 stuff, be sure to click over here on this playlist. That'll take you to a full playlist, just full of Killing Floor videos. Hopefully they help you out a little bit, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Till then, stay cool. Bye.